Welcome to Top Tier Underground, the podcast that gets inside the mind of your favorite underground artists. Today we have Big Joe Daddy from the Bay Area. He makes beautiful music that spans a wide variety of styles and influences. And might I add, his mixdowns are very clean and crisp. It's quite the treat for the ear. Go follow Big Joe Daddy for his upcoming releases, and subscribe to Top Tier Underground.
Okay, I'm here with Big Joe Daddy. So, how's it going, man?
I'm great, Eric. Thank you.
Yeah, I'm super glad to connect with you on here. I've been wanting to talk to you for a while because I've listened to a lot of your music over the years. You know, I'm a huge Chillage fan, and
Oh, cool, man.
yeah, I'm pretty good friends with Peter Farr and
Yeah.
Alex, and all those guys. So, Will. So it's cool. So how did you connect with them?
Oh, let's see. That's a long story. And if you got a second, I met Alex Gonzalez, a spoken bird, and Derek Gass, who now goes by Shrines, a long time ago at UC Davis when I was doing sound. And I had been away from Davis for a while. And when I moved back, I reconnected with those guys. They were part of a program at UC Davis called the Technocultural Studies Department.
Oh, yeah.
And I kind of I didn't insinuate myself, but I got to know a bunch of the other folks who had stuff going on there. And at the same time, I was also teaching an electronics music production class at the UC Davis Experimental College.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, and that's where I met Will. And the other cast of characters who would come to form Chillage, and we all got to know each other through there. And when it turns out they had listening parties with TCS, so the monitors they had over at TCS weren't as good as the ones I had in my studio. So I started inviting everybody back to my place for listening parties, and those became the Chillage.
Oh, that's so cool.
Totally, yeah. And it became this. It was great, man. It became this wonderful salon where we would get to just sit back, have a coffee, have a beer, whatever, play our new tracks, give feedback on those tracks in like a really safe space where it's it's all friends and everything's all positive.
Right. It's not like you're not nervous about critiquing with it's. The feedback is from a good place and not like an envious place, maybe, because that tends to happen.
Yeah, totally, man. And, so it fostered this space of trust. And we'd also share like samples and plugins and stuff, like, things we'd find, new artists we'd discover, like new musical forms, just musical ideas. It was like really in all essence, like a true salon. So.
That's awesome. So how long have you been into music production and maybe the DJing in the scene?
I've been making electronic music since, 1998.
Oh, wow.
That's awesome. I had a desktop running Sony Acid.
Oh, really?
And I had a bunch of VMU outboard modules. I had an XL7 and a bunch of keyboards that I would tie together with MIDI to do my little primal, PA sets, I guess.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah. Thanks, man.
So I'm sure that you've seen the scene down there have you always been in that area?
I'm actually a transplant from Massachusetts.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. I came out here, back in 1991. Before that, I played trumpet, and it was mostly.
Yeah, that's what I wanted to get into that with you too.
Oh, cool. Yeah.
But we'll get there eventually.
Yeah. So, I'm sorry. We were talking about the scene out here.
No, it's okay. So you were transplanted from Detroit or from Michigan?
From Massachusetts.
Okay.
Yeah, and came out and I started playing in. I did mostly classical music before that, and when I got to California, started playing in like dance bands, funk bands, reggae, salsa, and eventually jazz bands, and got way into jazz and acid jazz. I played in a couple of bigger regional acid jazz bands here out of Central California. My last one was a group called West Coast Rhythm Section. we'd open up for Carl Denson and Galactic and Charlie Hunter Trio, bands like that quite a bit. And that led into me trying to do music for a living, which led into me doing sound for a living because, it's really hard to do just being a performer for a living.
Right.
And doing all the sound and the studio stuff is what got me into the electronics.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, because I thought, hey, if I can learn all this stuff, I can do it all myself. So
Right.
Yeah.
So with jazz is like the most complex music that there is, right? I mean,
it's something else, man. I mean, it's really kind of like the nuclear physics of music.
Right. Yeah. It's like call and response. And there's like all these way outside of music theory. Like it takes music theory to the outer edges of.
It really does. It pushes it. And these guys who play it, they do it so much. They have their scales, their music, their songs so well internalized that and they can communicate their ideas so quickly and also pick up on them so quickly. It almost kind of looks quasi telepathic.
Right.
The interactions these people have. Yeah.
You're so right. I love, that's the one thing I love about jazz. It's just it's like a conversation,
Yes.
Between all these instruments, and the conversation envelops in this way that's like almost like magic. If you were to
Totally
believe in magic, it's like, this is like what magic would be.
If I might digress a little bit, did you ever read Isaac Asimov's Foundation?
No, I haven't.
Wonderful book.
Write it down right now.
He puts forth the notion of a group of mentalists, a second foundation, who are capable of telepathy, but the way he describes it is like a combination of just everything, like eye gestures, body language,
Sure.
Everything else that in its sum and form, will allow people to communicate non-verbally and almost quasi telepathically. Jazz is kind of like that too. Yeah, I guess.
No, totally. That's really interesting, man. Like back east, I've seen some live jazz performances. I'm not so much on the West Coast, but I live in a different area of the West Coast than you do. But like back east, and I've seen some live jazz performances with lots of people, you know, and you get this like just this rhythm going where it's so natural, and it's like so much different than a jam band, but it is like jamming, It's really cool.
Totally, man. Yeah.
So how has that influenced your music? Because I know that you have a lot of brass and stuff in your music. And
let's see. It's influenced my music quite a bit. I kind of almost feel like I'm an ambassador of jazz.
Yeah.
To electronic music.
Totally.
And I
can definitely see that.
Oh, thanks. And I try to. I'm trying to keep sort of the interest alive in the form within the electronic music community by just talking about it, talking about the talking about my experiences, talking about the ideas that I've taken from jazz and used in my music. And mostly so far it's been just like swing.
Yeah.
And Dixieland and some of the older jazz forms, because they sync so well with glitch hop and swing hop and stuff, and everything just kind of goes together so easy. But I really have been very interested in seeing what other groups like Coan Sound with bringing some of like the more mature sorts of jazz styles like fusion. Like that last release they just put out, I'm hearing all kinds of fusion, man.
Yeah.
Like fusion bass, fusion drums, like stuff like Weather Report, Miles Davis. Like I'm really hearing like that influence in that music, and that's really exciting to me. That's something I'd like to pursue.
Yeah. Yeah, that's really cool. It's like another good example of someone who I think takes a lot of jazz influences in their production is Tipper.
Oh, totally, man. I mean, he absolutely does. Like he really understands, like all the old swinging styles and stuff like that. And he has this very strange sense of tonality. Just when he writes a melodic progression, I'm feeling like a lot of that is starting to even go outside of what jazz is. In fact, that's what kind of attracted me so much to electronic music is I'm hearing all these amazing progressions that almost never would have, jazz never would have conceived of, just because the progressions are coming, I think, more from the machines and not so much from the tradition.
Right.
Makes sense at all?
Yeah, absolutely.
But it's when I heard, oh God, what track was it? Like Paper Thin Reality, I think was the Chipper track that really made me go, wow, like that's not a progression I have seen in the real book. So
yeah.
totally.
Yeah. So what, like when you sit down and write a track, what's kind of your writing process, and do you use your trumpet personally?
I use it quite a bit. It depends upon the where the track is coming from. Some of my tracks start with a melodic idea, and those are those definitely all come from the Morrison digital trumpet. Though lately I've been trying to write a little more vertically and work out the changes first before I work out a melody. At least on my newer material, I'm just kind of sort of trying to go that way. So a lot of times I'm just sitting down with the keyboard.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
That's so you said that you use an electric trumpet?
Yeah, I use this little device made by this genius creator named Jim Marshall from Australia, called the Morrison Digital Trumpet. It's a next generation electronic valve instrument, or EV. As opposed to electronic wind instrument, or EW, as you might have seen those. They look like a kind of like a cybernetic soprano sax. The device I use actually looks like a cybernetic trumpet, but it does have the 3 valves, and it allows people like me who played acoustic trumpet for a long time to transition over very easily and use our right hand technique. So.
That's really cool. Yeah, I was kind of wondering how. So, do you ever use like an actual like old school trumpet and mic it up and use that?
Occasionally. Now I used to have to practice about 2 or 3 hours a day to keep my chops up, and a lot of that was really physically intensive.
Sure.
I stopped doing that about 8 years ago when I got the Morrison.
Really?
Yeah, and I can. So I've got about It's funny. I've got about a 5-minute window where I still have all my old range and power, but it slips away after about that 5 minutes. I just don't have the endurance to keep up anymore like I used to.
Sure. Yeah. My wife actually played trumpet.
Oh, cool, man. Right on.
Yeah, I know. So it's kind of, I when she was younger, I don't, she didn't pursue it heavily like yourself, but but it is such a really cool sound, it's so unique. And
yeah.
I love the brass collection, and
cool, man.
I like that it finds its way into electronic music sometimes, So.
Yeah, totally,
yeah.
Man. Yeah.
So when you like started in the scene and stuff, and how have you seen it like change over the years since you've been doing it for so long? And what do you think about the direction it's headed
in? That's really interesting. That's a very interesting. That's a very that's a big question, man.
Yeah.
I mean, like really the music that got me back into electronic music was like Mesmerizing the Ultra by Bass Nectar, and like a lot of Bill Laswell's old stuff. And back then this is pre-Ableton,
right?
And I've kind of watched, and I've seen how Ableton has changed the way everybody makes music, and how it does have a particular sound. And when Lauren went from using Just Reason to using Ableton, like how vastly it changed the direction of his music. And everybody has, it's definitely been the Ableton sound, ever since. And I've also seen, some new styles emerge. When I was first getting into it, dubstep was first, coming on the scene. And I'm talking about like the old atmospheric stuff.
Right. Yeah.
Like, Caspa and Rusko. And, and I also saw the emergence of Datsik and that transformation. And
that's just like killer metal shit.
Totally, dude. And I saw how that changed the scene, and how when with the emergence of bro step culture, it actually kind of opened electronic music up to I feel like the rest of America who had never seen it before. And it really resonated with the young people, like 12-year-old, 13-year-old. And I could just see it in when I was hanging out with my friends' kids, how jazzed they would get when Datsik would come on, dude. That's really funny. Like they're 8 and 9, and they were just bouncing off the walls, man.
Yeah, I know. It's really interesting how it hits generations completely different. Like if I play my dad music that I like, he is really confused, and but it's like but you can play the same thing for a younger person, and it kind of like they get it.
Something else I've noticed too is that before before the emergence of dubstep and brostep, just like people in general had a tough time listening to the edgier sounds. And with the emergence of these musics, I mean, I find myself going to festivals and hearing sound design where I'm going, oh my God, like that's never a tone I would ever try to use or do anything musically with. And, and I'm looking around and everybody else around me is finding the music in this stuff. So I have to remind myself, dude, you got to have an open mind. There's stuff, keep yourself open to it.
Yeah.
Stuff that you're probably not going to get right away. And, and pay attention to the young people around you, because they're going to show you, what's beautiful about it. So
yeah. That's a good outlook to have, because it's really easy to get jaded,
And it's funny too, because back, I used to play a lot of the edgier kind of jazz. I was really into free jazz, Sun Ra, Coltrane, Cecil Taylor, Peter Brotzman, and a lot of these dudes were going towards the sonic edge of what was considered to be tasteful. I got to study with this one dude, John Chikai, when I was living in Davis, and he's definitely one of my dragons, dude. He's one of my mentors. He used to play with Coltrane back in the day on the Impulse label, and he's cut a lot of records himself on Impulse. You can find him on John Coltrane's Ascension. And the way that genre of music would push the tonality of like trumpet, tenor saxophone, I've heard like trumpet players make their instruments sound like dentist drills. and like it's really pushing the edge of what's acceptable. And so this music kind of had a really small audience, and I sort of thought like the people who are going to see this music are they're paying attention, and they're paying attention with open ears.
Yeah.
And now I'm going to see EDM concerts, like when I went to see Nasty Nasty.
Yeah.
Like that dude really pushes the edge.
Oh,
of
yeah.
What is acceptable sound design? But every time it comes out, it's musical.
Yeah.
So
he's a unicorn. It's really weird. Like
dude, he's amazing. Totally. Yeah.
Yeah. It's really strange. Like him, and there's a bunch of those guys that have like this they bring this new edge that wasn't really thought of before, and then you're like, damn, really? Okay, all right, here we go. And then it creates this whole movement, you know.
And he's opening kids' ears, and he's opening their minds.
Right.
And just like these jazz players were doing back then.
Right.
That's what they're doing, man. Like, respect.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
That's awesome. So when you write, like, what are some of your biggest inspirations that you grab from?
Let's see. You know, I did wear my heart on my sleeve for many years, and I tried to learn everything I could about Tipper's music, and write.
That's
I think we all, I think there's a lot of composers who try to do that. That's a good thing. It's like look at the try to find the baddest motherfucker in the room, and try to figure out like what makes him tick, and you can learn a lot from that.
That's a really good. Sorry to interrupt you, but just to stay on that point, I know guys that have been producing for just as long as you have, and are amazing producers, and they're like, man, when I try to emulate anything that he does, it's damn near impossible. I mean, he has this this thing with sound design that just can't be touched. It's really interesting.
And you know what it is he has a set of gear, and he knows that gear so well. He knows how to use every knob. He's been through every menu. He can, and it's amazing what people like that can do with a limited set. One of my big influences is a krautrock group named Cluster.
Never heard of them.
Okay, they are a duo from Germany from the got their start in the 50s. They're where Brian Eno got a lot of his tricks. Cluster is probably the most amazing show I've seen in my life. It's these
really wow.
Oh yeah, no, hands down, dude. I mean, blew me away in terms of sound design. It's these two dudes, Rodelius and Mobius. Rodelius goes out with a little teeny tiny Korg M1.
Yeah.
That's it.
That's it?
Nothing else, dude.
Wow.
And the sounds that this guy can pull out of this one keyboard just totally ripped my skull apart. And I had to keep looking back up on the stage to go, wow, is that all he has? There's not, the sounds aren't coming from anywhere. And Rodelius, all Rodelius had was a pair of CDJs. But I could tell, like a lot of the crazy stuff that was coming from or Mobius just had a set of CDJs. The stuff that Rodelius was doing was definitely coming from what he was doing in the M1. Yeah. I mean, it's amazing what you can do. Like, these tools that we have are so complex. And a lot of times we just get them and only scratch the surface. Learn what we take what we want from them, and then we move on to something else instead of getting to know everything.
Right. I totally agree with you.
Yeah.
It's definitely something where I feel like I've seen a lot of my friends get so stuck in the mud with getting more and more VSTs and not just learning one, and then getting kind of bogged down because they think that there's so much they have to learn before they start to write a track. And then it's like, no, just stick with, even if it's just operator. And, operator is that's what I use mostly. And it's like
a mighty synth, dude.
It is so powerful, and the shit that you can pull out of there. And I feel like once you can get something like operator down and really understand everything and that, how to work an FM synth and stuff like that, you can really move on to a lot of other things pretty fluidly because it's so powerful and there's so little options that to make a good sound out of it, you have to really know it. You know what I mean? Yep. And so I see that happen a lot with guys they'll just keep on downloading more and more VSTs and then it get bogged down, and it's it's unfortunate, but I think you're right. Doesn't Tipper use a virus? Isn't that
Yes, he does actually, and he also uses a Nord Electro, and he uses an Electron drum machine. I think it's.
Oh, really?
Yeah, that's where he's getting a lot of the crazy percussion sounds from. But
I didn't know that.
I ended up picking up a virus myself, and I'm
Oh,
really
really?
good at it. Oh yeah, dude, I love it.
Really?
Yeah,
Those are
I had,
cool.
I had a nice little. I talked with Curtis Bogtrotter a couple
Yeah.
of years ago, and I asked him and Kill Smith, "Hey man, you got a virus?" And Kill Smith's like, "Nah." And Curtis is like, "Yeah." And I asked him, what he liked about it, and he said there's some sounds in there that really get you where you want to go to a lot more quickly than if you
Yeah.
would trying to use another one, like another wavetable.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's cool. Yeah, I've
Totally.
never messed around on a virus, but I think Kill Smith, like I talked to him like a couple years ago, and he really wanted one, and he and I think he might have one now, because the last time I talked to him, I think he said that he had one. So I just want to mess around on one, but
Oh, they're awesome, dude. Yeah.
yeah. I had a sub 37 a Moog for a while, and that was
Uh-huh.
that's like. I really want to get another Moog, but I want to get a modulator,
A big modular. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So that's kind of the down the road goal, I guess. But
That sub 37 must be just so, wow, the filter on that just so.
it's really hard to make a shitty sound on a Moog.
Oh, yeah, dude.
Like, you have to basically be trying.
Totally.
So, well, what about like DJ sets? So when you play live, do you bring your trumpet into that ever?
As much as I can.
Mm-hmm.
And I really, nowadays I've been spending so much time in the studio writing songs. I really feel like I need to take like a big chunk of time with the material I have in the digital trumpet and just do something absolutely massive with the virtual instruments. So far I've been kind of using it to play along. There's normally I'll play like a sitar guitar patch. Sometimes I'll use acoustic trumpets. I've been getting into some cool spaces though, where sometimes I'll use it to trigger MIDI triggered effects like Stutter Edit or Artillery by Sugar Bites. And I figured out this cool little effects chain where I'm actually using a vocoder and this plugin called Unmix by Synaptic. And what I'll do is I'll take the track I'm playing, unmix the drums out of it, use that as a carrier signal for a vocoder, and then use another synth like Razor for a modulator signal, and combine the both of them together. And what it does is it kind of allows me to overlay a synth sound over the sound of the track without overblowing, because the vocoder will, if I'm trying to blow too hard, I can limit how hard with the vocoder. So, and make really trippy sounds like that. Another one of my big heroes is this trumpet player, John Hassel, who played a lot with Eno and was, looking to get really like non-natural, otherworldly sounds with the horn. And I think that's going to be the direction I'm going to be going in.
That's awesome.
Like less instruments and more sounds. Yeah.
I saw like an electronic band fusion one time that they had a trumpet, and man, it was so psychedelic. It was like the most psychedelic sounding show I've ever seen, and it was it was something totally unique that I had never experienced before, where because I've been so immersed into just like electronic music with DJ sets for so long, that when my friend like opened my eyes to this whole other world, which was band with electronic music into it, it was like whoosh, just blew my mind. So it's pretty cool. That's awesome. And so like what do you think that the future is going to be like for your sets and stuff then?
Let's see. I probably would like to get another computer to run alongside the one I have, just so it can handle all the virtual instrument stuff, and to play samples and to play samplers in virtual instruments. You probably well know you have to have your computer on a particular, or your DAW on a particular setting where it's really responsive, but it's also taking up a lot of processing power.
Right.
So maybe another machine for my set, so I can just go hog wild on and not feel limited by, like the CPU hit I take on off of like a single sample player or synthesizer. And really, I would like to have a band one day. I mean,
Yeah.
that's the dream of a lot of us.
Yeah. It's
Really,
hard to get people to work together that fluidly, though, right? I mean,
dude, totally, man. I mean, it's like herding cats. Um,
right.
I'm lucky in that I know a lot of world-class musicians from my from my former musical life, and all of them, to one extent or another, are really, really fascinated by what I do because
Oh, really?
oh, totally, man.
Yeah.
It's so far different from what they do. In fact, I remember before John Shikai passed away, I bought Ableton and the digital horn to a jam session. And I was kind of a little bit nervous, thinking that, like, John's from the old school. Like, what is he gonna, what's he gonna think about this? Is he gonna think it's a bunch of cockamamie stuff? And John was all about it, dude.
Yeah.
When I showed him Ableton and what the digital horn could do, he told me, like, dude, just keep doing this, dude. This is really cool, man.
Yeah.
And yeah, just all my old jazz friends are really fascinated. Well, also because, like, a lot of them too are they're playing shows for Blue Hairs, or some of them get to play at, like, cool clubs like the Shady Lady, but, like, they don't get to come play like festy parties like we do. Dude.
Right. I know. I have a friend that's into hip hop, and he's like, man, if I could get a crowd like one of your guys is like our like bad shows, like where it's like a bad, we're like, oh man, I wish there's more people there, and my friend that does hip hop's like, dude, that was amazing, and I'm like, huh, and so we are really lucky in that sense that people turn out,
Yeah, and the kids come to the shows with, like, with open ears, dude. I mean,
right. Yeah, totally. Yeah. So, well, cool, man. So why don't you tell people how they can link up with you? And I know that you said that you were excited about a release or something coming up. So why don't you talk about that?
Yeah, totally. I've actually got a bunch of new material that I'm trying to spread out around the world. I'm fortunate enough to I'm actually going to be releasing on 2 different labels in the next coming months. The first label I'm going to be releasing with is a label called from France called Nuit Blanche Music.
Oh, cool!
And it's they're a subsidiary of a bigger house label called Big Mama's House. And I just wanted to give a shout out to Maurizio Patti for signing me there. I'm going to be releasing a single with them.
That's awesome.
And that's going to be next month, March 8th.
Cool.
And I'm also going to be releasing an EP later on this year with a label from Australia called Trimurti. And I just wanted to give a big shout out to my friend and label director, Alex Tuatara. Trimurti is a wonderful down-tempo label and, very psychedelic. And I'm really excited to be releasing with them. So.
Well, awesome. Congrats, man.
Thanks,
I'm
man.
excited to see the releases happen. And why don't you tell people how they can link up to your socials and SoundCloud and stuff like that?
Okay. Yeah. Let's see if right now I'm on soundcloud.com/DJ-big-joe-daddy. And if you go on to Facebook, I'm facebook.com/DJ-big-joe-daddy. Working on a website. And you can also listen to the material I've released on Spotify as well.
Cool.
I have releases with Street Ritual, Swamp Music, and Chillage Records, and all of the singles and EPs I've released are, they're all there on Spotify. So
awesome. Yeah. Well, thank you so much, man. It's been great talking to you. And hang out with me just for a second. I'm going to pause this, and then people can check out your mix.
Thanks, man.